So welcome to Admin and Diagnostics from A to Z. Joined today by Victor Cruz, who's going to be handling any questions that come in. We'll try and read them out loud in case some other folks want that information. But we'll make sure we address all the questions that come in either live or right after the call. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. And today's going to be focused on a deep dive of administration and diagnostics. Just that one module of Goverlan. Try and give you some good ideas on how to make good use of it, how to really stretch its limits, how to understand the value it brings. And I think the biggest value admin and diagnostics brings is managing users and managing computers without remote control. And the advantage that brings is obviously less user interruption, faster resolution of issues, first call resolution, things like that. So we don't have to, sit through a lengthy remote control session to kind of figure out an issue. We can let the user continue to be productive and let us in the support world kind of do our job. And then the other thing that it brings is just a really easy way to navigate through our environment, leveraging that structure of Active Directory that's there already. We spent so much time building out our Active Directory environment, managing it, maintaining it, and then here's the ability to really use it, use Active Directory in kind of a way to navigate and support your users. So we're going to start here with, I think, just some basic machine management and looking at some of the tools that Admin and Diagnostics offers for just straightforward machine management. And it all starts with this Active Directory search here. Some of this is going to be some very basic stuff, but we'll get progressively more in-depth into Admin and Diagnostics. So with this Active Directory search, you can see that there's a little tip on how search works. I can search for just about anything within these Active Directory attributes. And I can also search for Active Directory queries. So I can do something like operating system contains Vista, or I can do department equals IT if I want to see a list of IT users. So we can really have a good amount of fun with this Active Directory search. So if I know I have a machine that has vPro out there, I can pop in a wildcard at the beginning, at the end, and just find my machines that are vPro enabled. Or I can do like just a straightforward partial machine name here. So I'm just going to do part of one of my Longhorn machines. And when I set focus on it, it's going to navigate through Active Directory and just drop me into the OU that contains that machine. So pretty straightforward so far. You can see behind the scenes is my Active Directory structure. And for those of you on the phone that are in workgroup environments, as long as you're in this Computers tab, you'll see Favorites on the bottom. And in here, you can add in individual machines as favorites. And this just gives you quick access to those machines so that you have a way to navigate to them quickly. And you can almost build out like a fake Active Directory. So if you're a workgroup environment, but you want to organize your machines by office or by location or by who the employee that uses it is, you can create little folders, add the machines to folders, and then you still have the same tool set available to you. So back here, focused on Longhorn 2, when we're looking at a view of machines here, these views are live. So the icons are indicating the machine state and operating system. And in our user guide, there's a key is going to show you all the different icons that we use. So Windows 7 icon is that little black monitor. The orange icon is the Windows XP machine, and so on. The blue text is all dynamic and will change as users, for example, log in and out of the machines, but the black text is all static and coming straight from Active Directory. If I double click on any machine, we're going to expose the Admin and Diagnostics toolset. And this tool set's very straightforward because it's all native Windows. So what's the difference between this and actually remote control in the machine? So why is this better, I guess, is the great question. And so the answer is that there's actually a user logged into this machine right now, this user Aaron Woods, and he's busy working, right? But he also put in a ticket saying he's having trouble printing right now. So your normal course of action might be, hey, let's fire up a remote control session. Let's go and manage his printers, and let's fix the issue. Instead here, I can just double click on printers, and it's as if I'm sitting at that machine, except that I'm also credentialed as the administrator. So it's not me logging in as that, starting a remote control session and having to deal with that user's permissions. I'm actually logged in as the administrator sitting behind the console. So if this user needs a printer added, I can just jump in here and add a local printer. I can add a network printer. I can assign the user to a printing queue. And the same thing for drive information. If I need to map a drive, I don't need a remote control session for this. And this looks like native Windows, but again, is permissioned as me, the administrator, already. So now I want to run through the list quickly, and then we'll get into some more fun stuff. So first thing on the list here is system information, and this is Goverlan querying information using our agent. And the level of info you can pull is really, really, I mean, if you can think of it, Goverlan will report on it and generate that information. You can see up top I have the machine name. I can even I have the IP address. I have the operating system on the machine, the service pack. In this case, it's a VMware machine, so we make no distinctions between traditional desktops and virtual machines. You can manage them both from within the same console. And then I have all the relevant Windows information, hardware level information, BIOS information. It gets really cool when you click on detailed information here. You can actually navigate through and see all of the details about that hardware. So if you find yourself crawling around on the floor a lot, because you're going through some hardware replacements and you need to know what video card is installed, stand up a trial of Goverlan, deploy some agents, and this information is going to come right to you. As I move here, you can see I can see the available drive space, memory information, everything like that. I can even move down to network settings. You can modify network settings, rename a computer, join or unjoin a domain, and just by that, that machines don't have to be domain joined to be managed by Goverlan. So you just need to be a local admin. If it's not a domain joined machine, you need to be a local admin to be able to manage that machine. And then down here, we can see login events for this machine. And this is showing you who uses this machine. And you can see Aaron Woods is the only person that logs in and out of this machine. And we're going to retain the logs for as long as you determine. We'll also maintain a remote control session history. And this is great if you're using Goverlan remote control and you need to supply audit reports of which admin logged into which machine and who the console user was. So you can see it's primarily me offering support to Aaron, and I'm logging into his machine pretty often, always from my workstation. You can see the session start time, session end time, and who that console user was at the time. Now, the agent management for a single machine also lives within system information. And the reason why I want to point it out right now is because I can remove the agent off of this machine. And what we're going to do is switch to historical information. And this is important because Goverlan is keeping information about your machines in an offline state. So it's basically what's happening is when you open up system information or any of the other reports within Goverlan, it's always showing you real-time results as long as the machine is online and available. So online and available, you're always seeing real-time. But if the agent's uninstalled and the machine's offline, we're just going to show you historical data from the last time that machine got checked into the database. And this is a concept we call shore data. And again, it's real time for online machines, last available for offline machines. And if I pop the agent back onto this machine, we'll just switch back to real time information. Now, if you want to get an idea of what information is stored offline, if you go into settings and into database settings, click on this advanced settings, you can decide what you want to store on offline. So you can see I am storing logged in users, I'm storing software products, system environment variables, all these different settings, and you can decide what you want to enable and disable, what information you want to have available for offline machines. You can also decide using scope actions how often we check machines into the database. So every single time I launch system information, it's going to go and re-pull this information and record it to the database using a scope action, which we're not going to cover today. We can decide, hey, I want to check all my machines into the database every single day, or I want to do it once a week, or I want to do it once a month. And you can just set that up. You decide how often you want to record that information, and it'll just be, every time that scope action runs, it'll just update that Shore data database for you. Now, moving down this list, not a lot to talk about because it's as if I'm setting up that machine. I can manage local users, I can manage local groups, I can jump into environment variables, all native Windows. Shared resources, the same, all native Windows. So, so not a whole lot to show. Device manager as well, native Windows. So here again, the big advantage, your user puts in a ticket, I'm having a hardware failure. You shouldn't have to jump out of your seat and visit the user. You shouldn't have to launch a remote control session. You just search for that user, search for that user's machine, and refresh a driver or do something like that. Now, software products, this was one of the things that a lot of folks mentioned as being a concern for them, deploying patches. So within software products, we can deploy third-party patches. We use native Windows automatic updates for Windows, for Microsoft patches, but in here I can manage my third-party patches. And you can see it's really the same software products you would see if you were sitting in front of this machine and you decided you needed to manage software. So as I look through some of the different software products installed, you can see if I wanted to repair, remove, or manage Adobe Reader 11, the options are there for me. But if I come down here to, I believe it's Chrome, let's just see. Yeah, so Chrome doesn't include a uninstall MSI. So the ability for me to remove Chrome using the native Windows option's not there. But you can see if I click on properties here, it does tell me where that uninstall string is. And I can go and grab that and still execute that as a process. So if we were going to go and try and uninstall Adobe Reader 11, it's really as simple as saying, you know, remove this program. And then what we're going to do is run the uninstall MSI that Adobe includes with the install. Some software vendors don't include an uninstall, like Google doesn't include with Chrome, but they do include an uninstall string that you can then run. So what I did just now is I uninstalled Adobe Reader 11. So Adobe Reader is something that we patch all the time. So this is a good one to talk about. It's a good one to show you how we might deploy an Adobe Reader patch. And so to do that, we use Goverlan software packages, one of the objects you can manage within Goverlan. And you can see I have a bunch of software packages that I've built out already, including Adobe Reader. And when I open that, I'm just going to show you what it looks like to build this out within Goverlan, and then we'll talk a little bit about you know, what the next step is for patching. So if I want to deploy a patch with Goverlan, all I do is give it a name, a display name. I can give it an optional description, and I can put it in a category, which is just a folder. It's, you know, how that's contained in the Adobe folder. And then I just point Goverlan to where the package is located. And the package can be located anywhere. It could be somewhere on your local machine. It could be on a network share, like it is in this case in our software deployments folder. It could be on your SCCM deployment server. If you're doing all your deployments at SCCM, you can just point us to those packages. What's going to happen is we're going to take that package and transfer it to the client via our agent communication and then run it locally, which is why it can be pretty much anywhere that's accessible to the console. Now, for MSI files, they'll always be installed silently. We're always going to install them silently so they don't interrupt that logged-in user. That's the whole thing we're trying to avoid. We're not using remote control sessions, you know, where you don't want to send pop-ups to the user or anything like that that's going to interrupt their day. So what I did here is I just researched silently install Adobe Reader 11, and I came up with the argument string. Somebody else was out there kind enough to put that together for us. But the argument strings, I'm getting a note, the arguments are from vendors only. But I do know that on the Victor might yell at me for this. On the IT Ninja site, there is a good resource for some of the argument strings. You can research them, but you do want to find them from the vendor first. So here I pop those argument strings in here, and now I can decide that I want to reinstall Adobe Reader 11. So I just come back down to that built-out software package, and I choose to install it. And what you can see what it's doing first is it's transferring the package. It's grabbing that exe and transferring it over. And then it's kind of working its way through that install shield using those arguments that I provided. And it's just going to take about 30 seconds here to work its way through and install Adobe Reader 11. And so, if you were using Goverlan for patching on third-party applications, the work you would have to do is go out there, find the patches you wanted to deploy. So you just say, oh, okay, I need to make sure I patch these 3 applications. Download the latest builds that you want to install. Find out what the argument strings are. Build them out within Goverlan, and then you're ready to deploy them. And you can see that Adobe Reader 11 is now deployed and ready for use. And if I click on properties here, you can see that my install date is today, and it's got all the details there for me. So the thing that Goverlan doesn't do is aggregate third-party patches. So we don't go out there and we don't validate that this is a good patch. That's a really intensive type of undertaking. So that's not something we do at the moment, but we do play nicely with other aggregators. So like there are other aggregators that what they'll do is you go and say, I want to install these 5 patches, and you check off the applications you want to patch, and they'll go and build out a exe for you to go and deploy that's going to go and grab the patches and deploy them. And you can deploy that exe through Goverlan. So we will play nice with a couple of the third-party patch vendors. And if you're looking for some recommendations, you can reach out to us in support, and we'll definitely help you with that. Now with Windows patches, this is the native Windows Update tool. And what this is going to do is it's just going to instruct the machine to perform whatever it's programmed to perform. So if you have a Windows Update server, it'll go and communicate with that. If you wanted to go and grab the updates directly from Microsoft, it'll go and do that. So it's just triggering here in kind of a real time behind the scenes what the machine's already set up to do. Now we covered printers and drives. Let's take a look at our task manager, because we offer a few enhancements here over the native Windows Task Manager. The first thing you'll see here is the applications is pretty straightforward. I can end a task, I can start a new task, I can do things like that. In here in processes, we'll show the process parent relationships. So if you see like an application is peaking and there's something unusual going on and you're trying to get a little bit better of an understanding over what might be causing it, you can show the child processes and you'll see exactly what's going on with that. In the top 5 report, this is something that, like a little enhancement from us, and this is showing you in real time the top 5 things going on that machine by page faults, memory, disk I/O, and CPU. So just in each of those categories, what are the top 5 things affecting this machine? And then on these performance charts, this is a feature I absolutely love, because we've all seen that machine that's just peaking and going crazy, and you want to know what's causing these crazy CPU activity spikes. And you're left switching between applications and processes and sorting fields to figure out what's causing the peaks, and you can't figure it out. Here we can just kind of hover over them, and there's not much going on this machine right now aside from our agent running, so that's what you'll see the most of. But you'll know exactly what's causing peaks in performance. The remote console is cool to demonstrate. Because it's a behind-the-scenes permissioned as me remote command prompt. And that's what you'll see when I spawn it here. You can see it's a Goverlan remote console, and it started on Longhorn 2 as pjtext/echarm. So even though there's a different logged-in user, that's not what this command prompt is. This is a double-click it. Sorry about that. This is a a admin level command prompt. So some cool stuff you can do. Obviously, you can connect to the local machine. You can switch the connection to a different machine. But in here in your modify list, you can store and organize all of your favorite commands and send them over with a single click. So all I do is hit add new, and I can put in the command line, the display name, and a quick description there. But I have two filled out in here. So if I want to do an IP config, I don't have to type it every single time. I can kind of send it over with a single click. I don't know. I think a lot of people who use command prompts, at this point, because there's a GUI for almost everything. But if you're using the command prompt, you probably like typing and don't like clicking. But if you do like clicking, still, that's there for you. The other cool thing that this does is it's PowerShell enabled. So if you want to just send over some PowerShell commands behind the scenes, just click on PowerShell or type in PowerShell, and it's going to switch over to your PowerShell command prompt. Now over here under logged in users, I can do some fun stuff for this user, like send them a pop-up message or a chat. And I can also jump into this user's account information. So we're going to go through this a bit more when we switch to user view, but just to run through here quickly, this is kind of the best parts of Active Directory users and computers brought to the forefront. So if I'm here and I'm managing a machine and I need to do something for this user, let's say they don't have permissions to something, I added a drive mapping, but they're still not able to access it because some group memberships are blocking them. I can just jump over to groups here, and I can go and add a new group. I can import groups. I can export groups. I can show their effective membership to gain an understanding of how that group recursion is coming through, and some other cool stuff. But we'll take a closer look at that when we switch to some user management. So we're also sending a pop-up message or a chat to the logged in user there. And then in controls here, I can launch a remote control session right from here. I can start browsing this machine's WMI repository using Goverlan WMIX, which is a free utility. And I can also jump into this machine's power option. So from here, you'll see how long this machine's been powered on for. And this is a great piece of information because, if you tell your users, make sure you restart once a week or just to make sure you're getting updates, or so Outlook is playing friendly and stuff like that. Your user's like, yeah, I do everything you tell me, but it's still not working. And you jump in here and you see, your uptime is 63 days, so let's make sure we restart once a week. So it's a good piece of information to have available. And then you'll also see their IP address, and you can see that it's pingable and their agent status. You can send a message to that user again, and you can lock their machine. You can also power it off, standby, restart to safe mode, log off the user, and manage auto logins. So some nice controls. In external controls here, this lets you hang other applications off of Goverlan. Now, it could be anything. It could be literally any application. The only caveats, I guess, are that it accepts a focused machine name, focused username, or focused domain. So in this case, you can see I'm calling the Microsoft system information, pointing out where the program is located, and I can indicate if it's a console program or not, and then it can pass through that argument string. So if I launch this here, I did something right, here we go. You can see that it'll launch system information on that machine, and the same for event viewer, the same for any other tool that you want to kind of have accessible to you. So you can see here I launched Event Viewer on Longhorn 2 as well. And again, setting them up is fairly straightforward. There's some good documentation, but here's, Event Viewer is a console app, so I'm just going to pass through the application name, and I'm going to say, I want you to focus on this machine that I'm looking at right now. Now, Custom Actions allows me to sequence events or create really comprehensive reports, and this is really the powerful part of admin and diagnostics. So far, everything we looked at has really been native Windows. There's really not a whole lot of learning curve. There's really not anything else for us to kind of have a deeper understanding of other than really native Windows. So like if we know how to map printers in native Windows, we know how to do it in Goverlan too. It's the same UI, same interface. But let's say we want to do something a little bit more complex. We want to, we have one of these pain in the neck printers, it's one of these like fax servers or something like that. And it requires us to install drivers and map a printer and restart a machine and do something else crazy. We don't have to go and visit each machine and perform that sequence of tasks. We can decide in custom actions, hey, I want to build out that sequence once and then run it with a single click. So what we'll do here is we'll just take a look at a couple of examples, and then we can dive in quite a bit further. And by the way, all of these different Goverlan objects, whether they're software packages, which we looked at already, or script packages, which we'll take a look at in a moment, or external controls, which we looked at as well, they're all shareable for your team. So if you're using Goverlan in kind of a team within a team, you have multiple folks using Goverlan, and you build out some really cool external control that launches your help desk application and closes out a ticket based on the focused machine name or focused username. You can share that with everybody else. Everybody else can bring that into their console, and then everybody can have without rebuilding it. And the same is true for custom actions. So you can see I have a repository of custom actions here, and I can bring those in and make those available and make mine available to others as well, just by right-clicking and deciding to share with the team, enforce to the team, or make available. So when I choose make available, it puts it into that team repository. When I share with the team, it drops it into everybody's console and just indicates that it's a shared object. And enforce with the team drops a read-only version in everybody's console, so that this way, if I worked really hard on one of these and just, let's say it's one of those deployment packages and I got those argument strings just right for a silent install, I want to make sure nobody else can go and change it. So I may enforce it so that it's read-only and nobody else can change it. So we can take a look at some examples here. Something like changing a Wi-Fi password, right? So we all go through this quite often, where you have Wi-Fi set up, and you have Wi-Fi set up, and you need to you go through a password change, and instead of visiting each machine and launching remote control sessions and updating the Wi-Fi password information, I can come in here and you can see that some of the different actions we can run against the machine. It's anything from Active Directory related actions to logged in user related actions to literally anything on that machine, including running Windows processes. So with just a little bit of research, you'll know that you can change a Wi-Fi password calling the netsh process. And all you do is pass their new Wi-Fi profile information through. So I'm going to say, my profile parameter name is Goverlan, and there's my new password. And I'm going to run it as the local system admin account, or I can run it as a different user. And all I then do is double click on it, and it's going to pass through this new Wi-Fi information. Some other things that I'm able to do are something like, if I want to lock down USB ports, and this we get questions about all the time. Can Goverlan lock down USB ports? And the truth is Goverlan doesn't have a tool built in to lock down USB ports. But what we can do is edit the registry, right? And if you go and just edit one registry value, you'll know that you can disable use of USB ports. So here it is. And if anybody's interested in this feature, just reach out to us or indicate to us in the chat. We'll make sure we get it to you. So all we're doing is we have something that will enable us to lock down USB ports using a registry value. And actually, if we just go and just doing a quick Google search for this, and we'll just show you some other things you can do here. 1 second. So here, if we we have some information on enabling and disabling USB ports using using a registry value. You can see that to disable the value is 4, and then to enable it is 3. So here I built a custom action to disable USB ports, but maybe I want to go a step further and I want something that will re-enable them, because I have users that, you know, that I need to be able to turn them on and off. Right, so all I'm going to do is drag this into the bottom section and save it as a template. All right, so now my lockdown USB ports is going to be saved down here as a template, and it's right there. So now I can come back in and I can say I want to do one that's going to be enable USB ports. And I'm just going to go and drag this lockdown up here. And I'm going to change lockdown to enable or unlock, whatever you want. And then I'm just going to go and edit this to 3. And hit OK. And now what I have, and what I built out in about a second, is I have an enable USB port. So I was able to lock down USB, and I'm able to re-enable them. So really, really simple to do. You know, you can save items as a template. This way, if you just have one value to change, you don't have to go and recreate the whole thing. And these have so far been some very simple custom actions with just one action at a time. But there are some much more comprehensive ones that we'll take a look at in just a second. There's a question here about where do you set up your team? And so really all you're doing to set up your team is you're designating, and Victor may be able to speak to this a bit better, but you're designating just a file share for us to store these team, Victor's going to jump in. Go ahead, Victor.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so team collaboration, if you can please bring up a Google Chrome window for me, Ezra. Chrome.
You there, Victor?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, we can't hear you.
All right, wonderful. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
You can't hear me? I can hear you perfectly
yeah,
now.
Help him out. Oh, the folks on the phone can hear you, just I can't. Okay. So go ahead. Sorry about that, guys.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? You can't hear me at all.
Sorry about that. We'll just take a minute here to get situated again.
All right, it seems like Ezra can't hear me speaking, but everyone else can. Can you hear me now, Ezra?
I can't, but I think the folks on the phone can, so that's good enough.
Okay. All right, so I need a Google Chrome window from you if you can bring it around. Can you bring me a Chrome window?
Sure.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when it comes to team collaboration, I just want to bring this page up because it'll definitely support what I'm verbally telling you guys here, getting started. So if you go to goverlan.com/support and you go to our Getting Started guide, under Configuring Goverlan, you have team collaboration. So team collaboration, the way it works is all directly through the shared data database. This is where all of your, and these are all the packages that are actually stored in the Shore data databases. Software packages, batches and scripts, external controls. All of these packages and everything that you create custom pretty much with Goverlan is stored in the database. The only thing that pretty much generally is not stored in the database is a full scope action itself. But the parts that make up a scope action, like the action module and the scope module, are stored in the database as well. And those give you the ability to go ahead and share these objects. And then this page will just basically go into the different objects that you can share and how to share them. And as you can see, there are different methods that you can do it. You can enforce it on your team where it always pops up on all of your team's package area. You can share it with your team, make it available. And if you can, open up Goverlan for me, Ezra, real quick here, so I can demonstrate that. Let's see. I don't think you can hear me, but let me just close this here. All right. So as you can see here, if we come here into the start portion, actually, you can just go back to A&D, and we'll just right-click here and go to Manage Custom Actions. So here you can share, this is basically where you would, one of the areas where you can share your objects. And as you can see, you can share it with your team where it'll automatically pop up, or you can make it available, which is one of my favorite actually things, which is basically like a mini repository that sits inside of the database. And when you click Make Available to My Team, you'll basically see, if you come here to the team area, you'll see View Available Objects. And you can see other objects that other team members have shared. So it pretty much doesn't convolute, you know, your Goverlan objects area with other things that people have shared. And you can customize it and pretty much just go in there and import the objects and remove any that you have shared yourself. And that's pretty much the basis behind team collaboration. And just so you can see here, it's in Settings, Database Settings. Everyone needs to be pointed to the same database. And just a quick rundown, we do have two database versions that you can use. You can either use the SQLite, which is file-based, or SQL Server. But I will say we do recommend using SQL Server because it's a lot more reliable. And generally, it just handles, you know, the database operations better. And a rule of thumb, we usually say if you're about, you know, 5 to 10 technicians or more, it's best to use a SQL Server instance, and most enterprises have them. And if you don't, you can download it for free, SQL Express, and spin it up on a small little server and go ahead and push that out to your consoles. But as long as everyone is pointing to this same database, then you can go ahead and share any object that you like.
Awesome. Thank you, Victor. Okay, and we are going to talk about these stealth mode enable and disable and what that is. So, you know, in short, what that is you're also able to control the user experience within Goverlan Remote Control using custom actions. And this is provided that you're not already using a Goverlan Central Server to do the same thing, because the Goverlan Central Server is always going to take precedence. So if I wanted to enable stealth mode, which is basically no visual notification to the end user, I can build out a custom action that manages the Goverlan agents. And that's one of the choices here in Execute Computer Actions, is managing our agent settings, right? So what we're going to do is set remote client-side configurations, right? And you can see that it just comes up with this window, and I can decide in my pre-action, a 1 is no action, and there's like a little tip section down below for what the different values are. Post session is no action, and then I don't want to notify the user. I don't. No visual notification is going to be turned on so that it doesn't notify the user and things like that. So what will happen is if I'm not using the Goverlan Central Server to set these settings in all the time, I can instead decide, hey, I want to turn on stealth mode for one remote control session, and all I do is execute this custom action. Now, I can also decide to turn off stealth mode for one remote control session, and that's obviously just changing these settings. So here, you know, it would be, instead of no action, it might be prompt a local user for approval, right? And instead of no visual notification, it might display a visual notification. So you can adjust these settings however you want, and then you just double click on it, and it'll send through that new agent setting, as soon as you execute it. So there's a whole bunch of different ways of enabling and disabling stealth mode for remote control. And this is just one of them where you can just use it to target a single machine at a time. Now, so far, again, these have been some pretty straightforward custom actions, but they can get really intense and we can really have a lot of fun with them. And where we really have a good, where I think custom actions is really powerful is in reporting. So you can report on literally anything in a machine state. And if we were going to decide to go and build a report on the fly, we can just come in here and say, you know what, I want to create a new custom actions for computer views, and I want to run a quick inventory on a machine. And so all I'm going to do is jump in here, hit this add remove, jump over to report on computer properties, and then anything I check off in this giant list is going to become a column heading. So maybe I want to bring in something like the model, the manufacturer, the serial number, and the chassis type. And then I want to bring in some OS information. I want to bring the display name, the major and minor version, and the IE version, and maybe the architecture. And then I want to see, you know, what software is installed on this machine, and I want to know product codes. And then maybe I want to know who uses this machine. So I want to see the username, the domain, and their login, logout times. So whatever kind of information you want to bring in, you just kind of check it all off, and it becomes your report. So as soon as I hit OK, it's going to go and build this for me, and it's going to be available for me to execute. So now when I double click on this, it's actually going to execute in real time. So all of these tools are real-time tools. As soon as you execute them, it's going to reach out to that node and gather that information. And you can see on this first tab here, I requested an Excel report, but we have all different formats available. We'll just see this information is provided on all machine-focused reports. And then we're going to see the model, the manufacturer, the serial number, and the chassis type. We'll see all that OS level information. My next tab is going to show me all the software deployed with those product codes wherever they're available. And then my last tab here is going to show me that user login, logout event. So who uses this machine? I don't have a good use for this report, kind of something we just threw together really quickly on the fly, but maybe you're going through some hardware replacement and this information is important to you. Now you can also supply conditions in these reports. And so if I'm looking for something specific in a machine state, like let's say I want to see, you know, that's not the right one. Maybe I want to see the drive space or something like that. You can get into something a lot more fun where you can, here I'm just showing on all drive information, but I can supply a condition to show me specific information. Maybe I only want to see results where you know, a certain piece of software is installed or something else is going on. You just set it in a condition and it'll only return results where those conditions are true. And we'll show you an example of that in just a second here. So custom actions are very flexible. It gives you control over literally anything in a machine state. Lets you allow some deep-rooted control with access to Windows processes and some other stuff as well. Down here, the last thing you'll see is script packages, and that's the ability of Goverlan to deploy scripts to remote machines. And here's another little way that Goverlan, a little differentiator for Goverlan and how we handle scripts. So the first nice bit about this is you can store and organize all of your scripts in folders. And then if I want to deploy the script, I just double click on it and it's going to deploy. But what's actually going to happen when it deploys is that it's going to take that script and encrypt it and transfer it to that client, run it locally, encrypt the results, and transfer them back. And that's important because if you're doing remote PowerShell, you may have to do some script signing and stuff like that just to make sure you get by, you know, you get through your firewall, you don't have any issues. Here, you know, it's using that established agent communication. We use a single configured by you firewall port for all communication. And you don't have to be concerned with script signing or anything like that because it's actually transferring that script and running it locally. And in script packages, we'll support deploying VB, Perl, PowerShell, and batch files. And very similar to building out software deployment packages, you're giving them a name, you're giving them a little description, and this is kind of a cool one. It copies their Office license key to a registry entry. You're telling us where the script is located, giving us some instructions on who to run it as, and then it's available to you. And then, you know, you can navigate over to any of these other machines. I can even right-click on them, and I can say deploy one of those scripts. Okay. So now I want to switch the conversation here and talk about some user and Active Directory management. And by the way, a nice little feature here is this Windows split button. This allows me to have kind of a tiled view of Goverlan. So if I want to split my screen here between managing users and managing computers, I can do so. So let's say I want to be focused on my machines in one of these screens, and then I want to be focused on some users in another one. I could easily do that. Let's just set our focus here. So now here we have some machines, an OU of machines, and here we have an OU of users, and I can manage both of these side by side. Let's look at some of the tools available to you to manage users. Now, the first thing here is that I can do pretty much all of my Active Directory user management right from within Goverlan. There's no need for me to log into Active Directory users and computers. So if I wanted to go, and we looked at some of the information and account information, we already saw that I can manage groups. So if I wanted to remove this group from this user, I just hit remove and apply and OK. I can also look at account statistics, see this user's successful logon count, bad logon, password age. I can view the domain password and account lockout policies. And then in login history, before we looked at a login history against that Longhorn machine, now we're looking at this user's login history. We're looking at all the machines that this user logs in and out of over a course of time. Some nice little tools here. By the way, almost any of these tools, I can jump in here and open the native Windows property, the Windows properties window. So if I want to just spawn that native Windows window, I can do that as well.
And you have to make sure that you have the RSAT tools installed, because that's what that native button does. It actually calls to the local RSAT tools on the machine, which is, if you're an Active Directory domain admin, then you know exactly what that is.
Cool. And then this next one here allows me to produce reports of all these tabs. So if I want to just get a quick report of a user, I can jump in here and say, close account information, his groups, his statistics, and his workstation history. Hit OK, and it's going to produce the report for me here. Here it is. Right? So if you want to just generate a very quick report of a specific user, it's really like a nice way of doing it. Now, in group management, aside from adding and removing, I can also import and export. So if I want to import, if I want to generate a group template, let's say this user Aaron Woods has permissions to all of these, is a member of all these groups. I can export it. I'm just going to overwrite this one, and then I can import it against another user. So here you can see he's part of domain users group A, large group, domain admins, and the remote desktop users group. And so let's say we wanted to give Aaron those same groups. Looks like he already is. So let's find the user that isn't. Okay, so her groups are slightly different. We can just choose to import, and we'll go and grab this one. And it's going to say we can replace them all or we can merge them all. So we're just going to do a merge, and we'll hit apply, and we'll save our changes. And so really that's simple to kind of grab a template of one user and then apply it to others. So some other things that you can do against users, we can also navigate directly from the user to their logged in workstations. And this is something that you'll see in Goverlan Remote Control as well. And this is called Fast Connect. So if I started focused on Aaron Woods, I can detect his logged in sessions, and then I can expose those sessions and use those same tools. So, and this is a way that we shorten the time to resolution, because you don't have to have that conversation with your users over what machine are you logged into right now. You search for the user, you double-click logged in workstations, and you expose those logged in workstations from there. We can also expose custom actions against users. So just like we have custom actions for machines, we have custom actions for users as well. And here we have things like employee termination or generating reports against users or provisioning users for the first time. So if I really wanted to very quickly generate a report of this user's group memberships, you can see the same type of wizard that was available for me in custom actions for machines is available for me in custom actions for users. Here I'm reporting on user properties, I'm setting user properties, and I'm executing user actions. So if I wanted to very quickly see, give me the details of Aaron Woods' group memberships, just double click on it. It's going to go and process that for me and generate that report, open it up, and then I'm able to do whatever I need to do from there. It's a really, really simple way of putting together really nice comprehensive reports. So now, in previous demos, we talked a lot about employee termination, right? And this is an area where IT and HR kind of interact and butt heads, and this normally happens 4:30 on a Friday. And so, instead of having to run through a fire drill last thing on a Friday afternoon, we can kind of build this out in advance and have it available to us to execute with a single click. And so just looking down this list, I'm not going to go through and build it all again, but we can at least see that we're going to run a group membership report. We're going to log the user off all their current sessions, and you can see that I'm just running a user action to log off the console user. And by the way, if you're trying to build this out yourself, it becomes really easy if you use the search, right? So if I just jump in here and I say log off, it's going to jump me to logged in computers and highlight log off console user for me. And then we'll run a login history report. We'll do some Active Directory cleanup work, like disable the account, expire the password, move the user to the terminated users OU, and then we'll remove group memberships. Now, there's tons of other things we can decide to do as well. We can decide to export the user's mailbox as a PSD. We can decide to delete roaming profiles. We can get a lot deeper into this, but this is something that's kind of straightforward. And it's going to allow me to make sure that my Active Directory cleanup work happens the right way every single time, that I've achieved my compliance objectives, that I don't have kind of, I haven't left doors open to ex-employees, whether they left on good terms or bad. So if I want to execute this, just double click on it, and we're going to go and terminate this user, Amy. And it runs through those steps and then generates my reports for me. They just opened on my second tab here. And you can see that it's going to expose Amy's login history and all of Amy's group memberships. Now I can do the exact reverse of that as well. And obviously, if we refresh now, that user Amy is gone. And it's because they've moved down to that terminated users OU, which was one of the steps in my termination. We can build the exact reverse of that as well, and in that we can provision a user for the first time. And so this might be, the reverse of what we just did. We may set their account to enable. We unexpire their password in this case. We are going to reapply their group memberships however we see fit. And we're going to move the user back to the right OU. And so what we can do is just execute that. And then it's going to go and obviously do all that work. And now Amy is gone from here and has been moved back to my Miami IT users and completely reinstated as she was before. And we can see that in account information. All the groups have returned and the account's reinstated. And if I was provisioning a user for the first time, all I have to do is come in here and add new user. And I can say, I can pick a username here. Actually, I'm in Miami here, so we're going to go Dwayne Wade. We can give them a description, give them a password. We can decide that the user has to change the password at the next logon, something like that. Oh, Dwayne Wade already exists. Okay, so here's my user. So now I created kind of a shell of a user. They have no group memberships aside from the default domain admins. They have no login history or anything like that. So what we can do now is run our provisioning template. You can have as many provisioning templates as you need. In this case, it's always going to provision them as Miami IT users, but you can have all different provisioning templates for all different user types, organize them in folders, and then just execute them. So now when we run this provisioning template, it's going to add in all the right groups and do just really reduce the amount of clicking in Active Directory users and computers that we're forced to do all the time. I think we had a couple of questions come in, Victor. Do you want to address those?
I answered most of the questions. I'm not sure if you have any that you see. There's custom actions. Yes, I'm going to answer Adrian's question. His question is, he states that, let me request control here. He states that when you go under a user, there are no script actions, but when you go under and that is because when it comes to the script packages, that is an exclusive tool set specifically for the machines view. Now, you can definitely push custom actions to the user's a script to the user's logged in machine, but the best method would be just to go ahead and do, for example, awoods, and we'll do set focus. And what you do is using our logged in workstation detection feature, you can go ahead and find what workstation he's in, and then just click plus, and you'll get access to the same script packages but directly under the user account.
Okay, and that makes sense because you're going to deploy the script against the machine that the user is logged into.
Okay, yeah. Now the second question is there any way to display the correct information without relying on DNS records? The site that I work at has issues and the DNS records are often incorrect. I can pull the correct IPs from DHCP and use that to remote login or remote console. So the best way to do this is, well, first and foremost, there are implementations. If you go onto settings in the upper right-hand corner of Goverlan and you go to network settings, this is basically where you can reduce Goverlan's validations, because when it comes to DNS, as long as it's working properly and as designed, it's a very, very good resource that Goverlan uses to validate any machine that you're connecting to, because we know how IPs change all the time. So as long as your DNS is updating those records properly, then you can use these settings. Now, in your case, Mason, DNS isn't working as intended, so you can decrease Goverlan's validations that it does when it comes to authenticating to other machines. And you do so via the Network Settings tab. The first one is always test connectivity before connecting to a machine. And basically all it does is it just pings it and just confirms if the machine is online or not. If it isn't, then it's going to ignore it and not try to connect to it. The second is validate system name before connecting. This is one of the features you definitely want to turn off, Mason, because this definitely goes and communicates with DNS and compares the IP address, and it does some other background logic just to confirm if the machine that you're connecting to is in fact the machine, so you want to uncheck that. You want to keep the resolve IP addresses to NetBIOS names, because that shouldn't have an issue. And finally, convert computer names to DNS names as well. You may want to delete that. But the main option you should, if you're getting, when you normally connect to a machine, Mason, I'm assuming you're probably getting that there's a little message that states that this is not the proper computer name and it'll reject the connection. You can go ahead and uncheck this, and Goverlan won't care if the name doesn't match to the IP address. It'll just connect to whatever IP or name that you give it, and whatever the network is responding to, it'll go ahead and just connect to that one.
I'll jump in.
MPOD wanted to go through the stealth enable.
Yeah, so just to take a look at stealth mode one more time. So if we were going to enable it first, right? All we're going to do, and I'll start from scratch, so we'll just build out this same module again. So it's a normal custom action. You give it a name, you put it in your optional category or description. Then just double click on Add New, click that Add Remove button, and this is an Execute Computer Action. And then you're going to move down to the Goverlan agents, because that is what we are adjusting, is the Goverlan agent settings. And by the way, this method will only work if you're not using the Goverlan Central Server, because the Goverlan Central Server will always take precedence over this. And the option we're going to choose is Set RMC Client Settings. Now, in here, you just select each action, and down below, it's going to tell you what it should be set to, right? So your pre-action is the pre-session action. So this is before the session starts. Do you want to prompt the local user for approval, or lock the workstation, log out the user, or disable remote control, or perform no action? So here, in our case, it is 1. Now, your post-session action is after the session ends. What do you want to have happen? Do you want to lock the workstation? Do you want to log off the user? Or do you want to have nothing happen? So again, our action is 1. There's a post-session notify screen. So when you end a remote control session, the little banner pops up that says your machine was being controlled by an agent. You can decide to disable it or not disable it. If it's set to false, it's not going to disable it. And then your visual notification is, even if you're not requiring pre-session approval, will still display a notification for a set amount of time. And in that, you can decide whether you're going to display that or not. And so that's how you'll adjust those. So just click through each one, decide what you want it set on. But again, this is only if you're not using the Goverlan Central Server.
All right. The next question is, when the new user account is created, will I still need to run the Exchange mailbox creation from AD, or can it be done with Goverlan? Yeah, you're definitely going to need to run your same Exchange
mailbox creation from Active Directory. And I know we're working on some implementations where you can just simply push a script to your Exchange server. But for right now, we don't have anything out of box for Exchange mailbox creation.
I think I know the answer to this next one on elevated PowerShell. Can I try?
Go ahead. Let's see. Go ahead.
Is it right here?
There it is.
Ooh.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
right,
basically, you have 3. The question is, how can we run a PowerShell script with elevated permissions? And basically, whenever you push in a script, especially a script package, you can specify the execution here. Either run as the local system account, run as the console user, which is the user that's logged into the machine, or run as, in which you'll just simply go ahead and get that usual enter credentials box, and you just enter whatever credentials you want that script to run as.
Next question here is, does stealth mode affect the user's machine performance? And the answer is no. It's just whether we're indicating to that user that we are remote controlling the machine. And again, this is remote control. So.
Exactly. And just to delve a little bit into that question, the agent is ad hoc in nature. So the agent pretty much isn't doing anything until a command is sent to it. So in the case of stealth mode, all you're doing is telling the agent, hey, when someone connects, please don't show any type of notification that the agent is connected. So when you go ahead and initiate that remote control, all it does is just the agent just reacts to whatever setting you have. But the agent is generally dormant. It doesn't affect any type of performance on the machine, and only wakes up when you remote control the machine itself or activate it in any way.
So another question, scheduled shutdown. Can it be done while Goverlan is off?
Yes. Well, basically the way a scheduled shutdown would obviously be through scope actions, because you can't schedule anything through administration and diagnostics. So yeah, basically when you set a schedule, the only requirement is for that machine that it was set on to be on. The user does not need to be logged in, nor does the Goverlan console need to be open.
And yeah, so the Goverlan console doesn't have to be open for scheduled actions, but the machine does have to be powered on. So this next question is, I had an issue the other day with a user where it was set to stealth mode, and but it still went into lockdown mode, and we get this quite a bit. You want to
actually, let me see here. This is actually something. Okay, when I connected with lock the computer and on the universal, it was also set to one, no action, any ideas. Okay, we can look into this after, Preston, because this is a little bit out of the scope as to what we're looking at here with Active Directory and and administration and diagnostics. So we'll go ahead and send you an email. I'll send you an email directly, Preston, to answer that issue for you and take a look at it, because every issue could be independent, and I don't want to give you one solution.
I do want to point out the last piece in managing, because we looked at managing users and computers, you can also manage groups directly. And so in here, what I can do is I can search for a group within Active Directory, and I can just open up that group, and I can affect the group members. I can add more members this way. So instead of starting from a user, if I have like 10 users I need to add to one group, this is a very, very quick way to do that. Can you import a group of users from a CSV file? Now,
import a group of users in terms of what? I'm assuming
I don't know
import.
if that's talking about user creation or I
if
know
he's talking about
import a group of
importing
users to a new group, but
yeah, I mean, if you want to import them, the way it would need to be is only through the Goverlan objects file. When you're using, just press cancel there for me.
oh,
These import and export options down here are Goverlan based, right?
Okay,
Here,
so
if you're
this
talking
is
about importing them into a group.
they were asking about creating users. So I know that the bulk object creation is something that we don't do. We'll do single object creation, but I thought we had something kind of nifty that we talked about before. You want to address that?
Well, no, not generally. When it comes to the scope of creating a bulk of users and creating a bulk of machines, that right now is a little bit out of Goverlan's functionality, because it's more to manage your machines. And A&D is basically the scope of A&D specifically is a one-to-one solution. It's not designed to manage multiple objects at once, even though you have that ability by, if you're in an OU and you do Control A, you can right click and you can execute specific actions on them. Or for example, if you look at a group of computers here, you'll be able to see that you can just do a Control A and you can go ahead and run multiple custom actions against them. But when it comes to managing multiple machines at once and users, the best is scope action. But yeah, in the scope of Goverlan, we currently don't have the ability to create a group of users at once because of the intricacy behind the data necessary when it comes to creating a user, like, the specific username, the password that's required by Active Directory, the first and last name, the description. So these are all things that Active Directory have a requirement in for you to create a user at once. So maybe that might be in a future release.
But if you do just import them directly into Active Directory, they'll show up within admin and diagnostics pretty quickly, and then you can apply Goverlan Custom Actions to kind of provision them from there. So you don't have to do your work in the Active Directory users and computers, obviously.
Yeah, and the best part about that is that Active Directory does have some built-in, like on the domain controller, they do have some built-in command line options that you can bulk create via a CSV, like a command line. And once you import that huge list of users and so on and so forth, then you can use Goverlan to provision all of the other things, like Ezra said, like their description, who they report to, their address, their department, their groups, all of that, hardcore management features that you need. You'll have all of that in one, as long as the objects already exist.
Another question here is, how do you copy objects or users from an existing user to a new user? And really the best way is to create a custom action that's going to do the work you want it to do and give it a meaningful name, so that this way it's available to use anytime again in the future. So if you were doing something like looking for which groups, like to copy a user's group memberships, I can come in here, take a look at Aaron, just run through a list of all the groups he's a member of, and then just build that out in a custom action and then apply it to any other user. That's about it for today's meeting. We've gone a little bit over. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. Sorry for the couple of technical issues we had today. It's part of doing these live, but we definitely enjoy these every single week. We're off next week for our holiday. I see that there's another question come in, but we will definitely follow up with you offline. I'm sorry. Thanks again.
Yes, and
you want to jump in?
yeah, I just wanted to say, anyone who has any questions or concerns, you can simply go to goverlan.com/support. At the bottom, we have a contact support link. You just click that little link. It'll give you a little form where you can go ahead and fill in your questions and concerns, and you can open up a ticket through our ticketing system. That's basically what it'll do, and we'll go ahead and respond to you there. And on that same page, we also have the direct live chat as well. But if you have any questions that are not needed to be answered like instantly and they're not critical, then feel free to just go ahead and go to goverlan.com/support and click the contact support link on the bottom. It's a couple things you fill out, and it'll send it out over to us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Victor. Thanks to everybody who joined us today, and hope to see you at a future Goverlan event. Have a great weekend.